Hello, and welcome to the Dance of Growth podcast. This is a place we take a good hard look at the ups and downs and thrills of living a wholehearted life of growth. I'm your host, Chelsea Christensen, a lifelong entrepreneur, wife, mom of four, life and business coach. This topic of growth is so important because somehow we started believing that growth was a result, a destination, or an achievement, but growth is like a dance. Sometimes it's fast, sometimes it's slow, and sometimes the most impactful moments are found in no movement at all. My hope is that as you listen to these real and raw stories, that it will give you an opportunity to do some self-reflection and notice your own journey of growth, the lessons that you've learned, the progress that was made, and also give you some bright hope for the future. You don't have to sacrifice your peace for your passions. We can dance with both. So let's get moving. Today's episode is with Chantel Louise, who is a boundary coach who specializes in human design. And I loved really hearing her experience about life and what took her to a place where she became a coach, and also where she learned about human design and how that really transformed the way that she saw herself and how she could use that tool to also help others see themselves in a different way, in an enlightened way, and really be able to step into who they are, into their power. And if you are a listener here on the podcast, you already know that this type of thing is so important to me. And while I don't necessarily use human design in my coaching, we all have the same objective, right? Like we all really just want to help women or people to be able to just see the gift that they are and be able to embrace all the parts of them and to be able to step fully into that power. And I think it's cool that human design was, you speak to it like it was your permission slip, right? To be able to do that. And so we can really dive into that. But also I can't wait for you to listen to her accent because she's in Australia. And I told her I would for sure have way more downloads and listens on the podcast if I had her accent. But that's okay. It's fine. We all get to have our own unique beauty, and that's something that she carries. I also hope that you'll look at the video because she has a great smile, a great energy about her. So yeah, I'm just really excited to have you here with me, Chantel. What else should the listeners know about you?
Hello, and I'm so excited to be here. Wow, you've really summed that up so well. But yes, on top of the human design, I am a boundaries coach. So I really do help women to create those bulletproof boundaries and step into their unapologetic self. And that is through, if you're suffering through people pleasing or, just really not being able to trust yourself, it's a huge passion of mine to really help women to really embrace who they are and step into their own power.
Yeah, that is something that I think that we can all learn from. Setting boundaries, I think as we grow, boundaries are kind of shown to us in a negative way. It's kind of like you're a jerk if you try to set this boundaries, or like, oh, you're going to hurt someone's feelings, or oh, like that's not respectful, or like, oh, they're like a grown up, or, there's like so many situations that as we're growing up that we're like I feel like the lesson that we learn, even if that's not what they're trying to teach us, is like, boundaries are rude. Boundaries are like disrespectful. It's like impossible to keep boundaries, right? Like all of these different lessons. And as I've grown up, I've learned like clear is kind, right? It's like actually a boundary can be the most loving, compassionate thing that you do for yourself and for those people that you set the boundaries with, right?
Absolutely. I struggled with boundaries as well, and growing up knowing that I was a people pleaser my whole life.
Mm-hmm.
And to me, I saw that boundaries was like, yeah, as you said, like a negative thing, like I was keeping people out and that I was selfish. And through my own journey and my own growth, I've really come to realize that boundaries is what has made that real connection with myself to look after not only myself, but those that are around me. And it's respecting myself and respecting those around me. So it's really about looking from it from a different perspective and flipping that story and creating a different story around what does boundaries really mean to you and how does it really help you so that you can be the best version of you and you can really support those around you.
Okay, so let's talk about the word boundaries and how you view the word boundaries. Like if you are coaching someone or if someone's really learning about what a boundary truly is for the first time, how would you explain that to them?
So boundaries is really what you will no longer accept. It's what you are putting up as this is what I believe to be healthy for me. And this is the relationship that I have that I'm going to accept or no longer accept or just not accept at all. So when it comes to boundaries, it's can be really daunting and scary when you've never done it before.
Right.
And especially when we've heard all of these stories of like, it's selfish to have boundaries and it can be rude. So it's really about starting really small with those boundaries. And I love to do a little fun exercise where it's like, what is your daily non-negotiables and what are your own boundaries? Because if we don't have our boundaries for ourselves that we are sticking to
It's really
and
good,
we are abiding by, then how can we expect others to follow those and really respect the boundaries that we have if we can't respect our own?
Okay, I love that tip right there that you just shared, because I think that sometimes we're so concerned about our interactions, our relationships with other people. And if we truly don't know how to set boundaries with ourselves, if we don't know how to say, I don't do this until this time, or after this time, I don't do this, or this is like, this is the way I eat. This is if I do exercise. This is if I, how I talk about myself. These are the conversations. Like there's so many ways that we can practice setting healthy boundaries. And I think healthy is the good word, is like a very important word for us to note, that word healthy boundaries, which means that it's alive, it's thriving, it's like beautiful, it's helping it's expansive, right? It's meaningful, it's purposeful, all of those things when it's a healthy boundary. Because we can set so many boundaries and be like, I'm so good at setting boundaries that we step out of that healthy place and now we're in like an unhealthy place. So I think just that self-reflection is such a good idea of practicing setting the boundaries for yourself. And then you're going to feel more confident and more like equipped to be able to set them with other people.
Absolutely. And that's what I get when I'm talking to so many women about setting boundaries. It's that fear of setting that boundary and communicating it. But when you start to really set those boundaries with yourself and feeling really confident within yourself, it's really communicating to your body and your system that it's safe to put yourself first. And by having that baby step of just working with that relationship with yourself, it means that you can do that next step of then communicating it to other people. And it makes it so much easier to trust yourself and to be confident when you're communicating that boundary to somebody else.
Yeah, so good. All right. I would love to go back to, I don't know when this discovery was made for you that you were like, okay, here I am. I'm shy. I'm indecisive. I don't really trust myself. I don't see myself, but I also don't think other people see me. I don't think they understand me. I'm like super apologetic about the things I say or that I don't say. And I'm like always in questioning, right? Did I paint that picture accurately?
Absolutely, yes.
Okay, so
that
you're
was me.
so you're that girl.
Yeah.
And how long ago would you say that is?
Oh, I would say that was probably about 5, 6 years ago.
Okay, so 5 or 6 years
And
ago. Yes, tell me about her.
yeah, so it was a real turning point for me, where I was, doing what you're supposed to do. You finish school, you go to uni, you study, you get into your dream job, and you work your way up through the ladder. And I had graduated from uni in public relations and in marketing, and I was in my dream job working in a PR agency. And what I really started to notice is when I was working there after 6 to 12 months, something started to shift. My confidence started to shift, and I actually started to develop severe anxiety. And there was this questioning that started to come in and this self-doubt. And I was like, what is going on? I no longer knew what I wanted, who I was, and I had completely lost myself. So much so that I actually ended up in hospital from my anxiety. And it was this real crossroads moment of, what do I do now? I'm in my dream job, quotation marks.
Right.
This is where I'm supposed to be, right? Why is this happening to me, and what is going on? So I decided to actually quit my job and move to Canada because, you know, running away from my problems, that's going to solve everything. And I had an incredible 2 years in Canada. But that was where I was like, okay, this is the moment where I'm going to find myself. This is where I'm going to, you know, fix what's wrong with me, thinking that there was a problem with me. And through that, that's when I really discovered, you know, podcasts and personal development books, and started diving into that. And I would start to put that in place and do like free courses and stuff. But what I started to realize is, like, yes, it was helping me, but I was seeing it help so many people around me and the impact that it was having for them. But it just wasn't, like, there was just something missing for me. And when I moved back to Australia, I discovered human design. And I was like, okay, this is interesting because I love astrology and all of that kind of stuff. And so I dug into it a little bit, and I am a manifestor. And so I read up about what a manifestor was, and I did not resonate with it at all. So I just left it.
Which is why a lot of people don't like to take personality tests, because they're like, don't tell me who I am. This does not resonate with me, right?
Absolutely. So yeah, I just left it. I was like, okay, this isn't for me. I don't know what they're talking about. No. And then I think it was like a couple of months down the track, and I was talking to a human design reader who was also a manifestor. And I was like, okay, all right, then I'll book in for a reading. And in this reading, I had never felt more understood and seen in my whole life. And what I really realized was, I wasn't resonating with what I was researching about, because online they talk so much about the empowered side of human design and your energy types. And I was highly conditioned. I was a huge people pleaser. I lived my life based off permission. I did not trust myself at all. And here I am reading online about manifestors, and they're, you know, they're the leaders. They're here to take charge. And when they walk into a room, everyone sees them. I'm like, that's not me. But I want to be that person. So it was the first time that I was like, oh my gosh, this is who I'm supposed to be. And seeing it laid out in my chart, I was like, this gives me this huge permission slip to actually step into the power that I want to be in.
Can we also bring attention to the fact that you said that's who I want to be? Like, but that's not who I was. Because here's the thing is, like, even without the human design, like, you are still you, right? And one of the really cool parts, I think, about whether it's the Enneagram or whether it's astrology or whether it's human design or whatever, there's something that happens when it's not, you don't have to directly just like look at yourself, right? It's like, it's showing you a mirror, and it feels a little less invasive than you just deciding who you are. Like, if you were going to read, like, when I walk into the room, like, people notice me, they look at me, right? That feels uncomfortable for us to do a little bit when we, you know, and so these, and because there's probably people listening who have never taken a personality test, they don't know about this, or they're like, why would you do this? This is so strange, or maybe this makes me feel uncomfortable, or whatever reason. But it's a really cool opportunity to say, like, is this true about me? Wow. If this were true, like, how could this be true about me? And I love asking that question on all, especially the things that push you out of your comfort zone, from your conditioning or from your life experience or from your insecurities. Like, you are meant to share your voice. You're like, oh gosh, like, is that true? Could that be true? Like, do I actually, you know, so getting really curious about those tests, I think, is so powerful and so helpful. And I also love that you had a little piece in you that said, this isn't me right now, but it is who I want to be. And this was your opportunity to take it and say, I'm going to believe you, and I'm going to make some different decisions. I'm going to show up differently. So how did you start showing up differently once you learned about this?
It was really being able to see me for who I truly am, and understanding why I do the things that I do.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas previously I was so judgmental and there was so much shame around why I would do certain things and
Mm-hmm.
why I would show up being a shy person, or why things would affect me in such a way, or why I couldn't make decisions quickly. And so being able to really understand who I was helped me to really figure out, okay, so this is why I do this in this way, and that's perfect. There's nothing wrong with me.
Mm-hmm.
We are all so different and we are all so unique, just like our fingerprint. And so, how
Mm-hmm.
can I compare myself to somebody else when they're so different to me? And so, really, instead of judging myself for my differences, really just embracing them. That's what
Yeah.
really helped me to shift into this confident woman and embrace who I really am, instead of just questioning everything and just not trusting myself at all.
Yeah, I really do think, especially as women, I think we spend so much time just questioning like our adequacy or inadequacy, or like I had a question today in my Instagram stories about how can I help my 13-year-old daughter? She's like comparing herself to everyone, and I'm like, comparing means that she believes there's something wrong with her, and so she's looking around her to determine what it might be, when really all it is that she's just afraid to be herself. She's afraid to see or accept or love herself. And so I think this work is so important for us as women, and especially if we're trying to teach like younger children. It's so important for me, like with my own daughters, like that if I am willing to really truly know myself and accept all of the pieces and the parts of me, then it's going to give them permission to do the same. They're going to follow my lead, right? Like we can cheerlead each other all around us. I could tell you how great you are. I could tell you how beautiful you are. I could tell you that I see these gifts in you. But like until we're willing to actually notice and see those things and believe them in ourselves, and we really, we can't really do anything about them, which is so frustrating. But I do love so much that you were able to find a tool, right? Sometimes we just need tools to help us. And sometimes that might be a podcast for people. Sometimes that might be a book. And for you, it was human design. And that's why I think it's so important to talk about, because like use the resources available to you to, if you need that little extra encouragement to know more about yourself, right? Like the Enneagram was life-changing for my sister. For the first time, she was like, oh my gosh, this all makes sense. And then in her relationships with my mom or her husband, oh my gosh, this makes so much sense. I'm seeing all these pieces. And so it's so cool that we can just a deeper understanding, but it also gives us like there's like this little buffer that we all of a sudden are willing to accept, right? This
Mm-hmm.
acceptance with ourselves.
Absolutely. And really, when it comes down to it, is because we've completely lost touch of ourselves and who we
Mm,
are. And it's about
mm-hmm,
learning to come back to us, because
mm-hmm,
there is so much external noise out
mm-hmm.
there from TV, like the media, social media, like our friends, family, everyone. There's
Yeah.
so much noise out there, and we consume more information in one day than people in Shakespearean times consumed in a lifetime.
Isn't that
So
terrifying? If you think about it, you're like, oh my gosh, no wonder why my brain actually hurts sometimes.
absolutely. And
Mm.
so it's understandable that we get confused and we get caught up in the noise of
Mm-hmm,
what other people say that we should do, be, think,
mm-hmm.
feel. And
Yeah.
so it's about coming back to ourselves, and because our body's always communicating to us.
Yes.
It's just coming back to ourselves and learning that language that our body is speaking to us, because we are taught that, we can't trust ourselves and you have to make the most logical decisions. And that's just not correct. Our body knows what's right for us. And so it's about learning to communicate with it and trust it.
Yeah. And that's one of those things that we could set as a boundary with ourselves, is that when my body talks, I listen. When
Mm-hmm.
when there's that knowing that's going on within me, I don't abandon that. I stay in integrity with like what's going on in my heart and my body, right? And I think that like that's a really hard boundary to keep when you are someone who wants to make other people around you comfortable and happy. Have you experienced that since you've made this shift? You've stepped into this place of power and knowing and security and, confidence in yourself. Now, how has that been in your interaction with other people?
Absolutely. What I've really realized when I've stepped into this confidence and these boundaries that I have is that people respect me more. And sometimes when I've communicated a boundary for the first time, it is confronting not only for me, but for them, because they have experienced me in one way my whole life.
Yeah.
Or the whole time that they've known me. And then this next minute I've shifted and I've said, well, no, this isn't what I'm going to accept anymore. So there is a little bit of that friction at the beginning.
That's what I was
and
wondering.
They are uncomfortable. Yeah. So they're going to be uncomfortable as well, because they're like, hang on, this is not who I know you as.
Yeah.
So there is going to be a little bit of that friction, but it is in those moments where you will find out who are the right friends for you, who really truly cares for you, and who is meant to be in your life. And when you start to communicate these boundaries, it is an incredible way to detox your life, which can be really scary as well, because cleansing our lives and saying goodbye to friendships and relationships and people in our lives that, may have been there for a long time. But I truly do believe that people are in our lives for either a reason, a season, or a lifetime.
Yeah.
And it's okay to say goodbye to friendships if they no longer serve you, and that there is nothing that can really help support you, or you can't support them anymore.
Right. Because with these boundaries, we are back into alignment. And so for the majority of your life, when you were people pleasing, you were maybe you were in alignment with them, but your inner alignment was completely off base, right? Like I've experienced that personally on my own. And those people who don't accept the boundaries that you set, what they're asking you is to stay out of alignment with yourself. But if when you're in a healthy place, then you know that as we are each in our own comfort and clarity and purpose and alignment, that's when we all function the best together, not just individually, but also together. There's a quote that actually says, like, givers need to set boundaries because takers never will. And I think that is because the people in your life who, when you set a new boundary and they are respectful, those aren't the takers, right? The takers are going to be the ones who are angry and who are frustrated with you and who don't accept, because they want to be able to take as much as they can, whenever they can, wherever they can, however they can. But that's not how it's meant to be, right? That's not how we can't survive like that forever.
No, and it starts to really affect us. And that's what I started to notice as well, as I completely lost who I was, because I was even more anxious. And I would have so much anger inside, because I'm like, people don't understand me. What is going on? Why is this happening to me? And I was very much in this victim state. But when I started to put boundaries in for myself and then start to communicate those, it wasn't just the relationships with other people that transformed. It was my own happiness.
Right.
That I actually could feel at peace and just know that what I'm doing right now is the best for me. And when I'm looking after me, it ripples out to those around me.
Yeah, no, that's so good. And also, you said, people around you weren't understanding you. And in that moment, you also weren't understanding yourself. And so I think that's like something to think about, is that if we're not doing that own work of understanding internally, then of course there's going to be a lot of confusion, because we teach people how to treat us. We show them, it's like we attract people who see us the way that we are currently seeing ourselves. And so, but as you did that work, of course it changed, because then you're showing them, you're teaching them, but it all does start like within us.
Absolutely. It starts with us, and it is that ripple effect. And I do believe that when we start to do the work, it starts to influence those around us. So you can't change the people around you, but by changing yourself, you can create that ripple effect.
Yeah, that's so good. So
Mm.
I would love to hear what you feel like is the biggest reward of working with people and watching them set these boundaries in their own life.
My biggest reward would really just see women step into their own power and being able to voice their opinion and speak up for themselves and stand up for themselves for the first time. And that feeling, like it just gives me goosebumps every time. And it's just, oh, it's an incredible feeling. And we hear it so often that hurt people, and through this work, it is really healing other women, and just from women being healed, they are then healing the world.
Yeah. Yeah, I believe that so much. And I feel like I've experienced that in my own life and in my work that I'm able to do as well. Like the more I heal, the more healing I can help others achieve and accomplish in their own life, which like there's not a like more beautiful work than that, is there? It's like I get to
No.
do it in my home with my children, but I also get to do it with beautiful women in this world. And I think it's such an honor and such a privilege, but it's also such a gift to be able to do that for yourself and then have it be like a ripple effect for so many others.
Absolutely, yes.
I love that so much. Thank you for sharing your experience with this, and thank you for the work that you're doing, and thank you for healing yourself and I know it's like a continual process thing that we go through. It's a decision that we make each day, and it's like always changing and being aware of the choices and the decisions that we make. And I just think that it's really incredible, and I'm grateful for you to come on and share that with us. So I appreciate your time so much.
Thank you so much. It's been a journey, that's for sure, and it's
Mhm.
an ongoing journey. And as you talk about all the time, it's that growth that is continuous.
Yeah, it is absolutely. It's a process, right? It's not a
Mhm.
destination. Sometimes we think that growth means that you're going to get to this place and then all of a sudden you've like become this thing when really it's a process. It is like a continual decision that we make, and it is an evolution, and and sometimes it's easier than others, but if we're committed to it,
Mhm.
then we are on the right path, I believe. So something that's really important to me is this idea of fire in her heart, peace in her soul. And I think that this is in perfect alignment with the idea of what the work that you do of setting these boundaries and being really clear about what feels good and right to you. So the fire is the part of us that gets us motivated, that we're excited, that we're passionate about. And sometimes we can get to a place where maybe our clients are demanding and we're meeting deadlines and we're like doing all this stuff. And all of a sudden that fire is like turns painful because it has cost us like the peace of our soul. And so it's really important for me always to be like, am I in alignment with this fire and this peace? Right. And also, like, I don't want to just feel peace all the time. I want to have something that is lighting me up, that's making me excited, that I'm super passionate about, that feels expansive, right? Like the growth is so important to me. So being able to manage both of those and dancing with them together at not at the expense of each other. And so I would love to hear what is something that is currently lighting your heart on fire.
That would be absolutely just guiding women through releasing emotions and
Mm,
knowing that every emotion is welcomed and not to stuff it in. So just communicating what these boundaries these emotions are, and letting them out. I do so many practices now, like screaming into a pillow, or like,
mm.
when you feel those emotions come up, just letting it out. And it is so empowering to do that. And it just lights me up when I can guide someone through releasing these emotions that they're holding on to.
That's so great. And what is something that you do
Mm.
to protect the peace of your soul?
For myself, it's really coming back to my childhood creativity. So playing, like doing painting. I'm doing paint by numbers at the moment, dancing, playing piano, things that I used to enjoy doing as a child, just to really help me come back to myself.
So good. I agree with that completely. That's something that I also like to do. And that's also the best advice I give to someone when they're feeling burnout or when they're feeling like lack of creativity or whatever. I'm like, stop trying to work more, go play, go do something that has nothing to do with work, that makes you happy to feel alive, that you forget that you're actually doing something because it just feels so good, right? I love that.
Absolutely. Yeah.
That's great.
Yeah.
Where can the listeners find you?
So they can find me on Instagram at chantellouise.co. I also have a website, which is chantellouise.co. So it's all the same wherever you search me. So it's very easy to find.
Perfect. I love that so much. Thank you for being here. Thank you for sharing. You are a beautiful, beautiful soul.
Thank you so much.
That's all we've got for today on the Dance of Growth podcast. One thing that would really help both myself and other women like you is if you would leave a rating and review on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you tune in to listen. Or just share your favorite takeaway from today's episode on social media and tag me at Chelsea Christensen on Instagram. Thank you for listening, and until next time, remember, when you're living a life that has both passion and peace, you are truly living in your purpose. May you always have fire in your heart and peace in your soul.